Hey, welcome back to another edition of DevHub Live. I am your host, Joe. We are packed with another great episode today. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started. Again, if you haven't subscribed to our newsletter down below, please sign up for that. Lots of great stuff going on, including our new challenges that are coming out regularly. Uh, we are really pushing to engage developers through these challenges. Actually, we have Vlad coming on at the end of the show to talk about the upcoming challenge as well as this previous one, which we got a lot of great feedback on. So if you want to be, first to know about that stuff, obviously follow along here. We also the hackathon that was just for 1 trillion agents just wrapped up. All the winners were announced on our Twitter. You can definitely go and check that out. There's plenty more hackathons going on. Check out the 1 trillion agent website, and you can see more of what's coming up there as well. And today, so today's guest is GrowthMate, and I'm excited to talk to them because this is an area that when we talk about the transition from Web 2 to Web 3 and what it means for data privacy and things like that, how you reach communities, how you advertise, how you go out there is an important piece of that. And it's not necessarily going away, it's still part of business. And so GrowthMate is trying to tackle that challenge and using some things here on Near in order to be able to do that. And I'm really excited to talk to them. And so we have Mohammed from GrowthMate here. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, how's it going?
Great. So let's start at the really high level. What is GrowthMate?
Yeah, so in short, we build recommender systems for Web3 users. And so based on a person's transaction history and on-chain interests, we can connect them to a pool of opportunities that our system knows about.
So when you say recommendation, would you call it the same as advertising, or is it something that is a little bit more than that?
Yeah, so the core of it is about recommendations, but then you can have multiple applications for that.
Mhm.
And so in our case, we actually do one of them, it's advertising. And so the pool of options would be ads or campaigns from multiple advertisers. But we also have another product, and it's what we call wallet feeds. And it's like the pool of candidates. It's things that we collect ourselves, and
Mhm.
money does not play any role in that.
So you guys are working with on-chain data. What kind of prompted this approach to it? I mean, and I'll preface this as, I both for my own businesses as well as some of the other stuff work I've done. Advertising and recommendation is a big piece of, I think, anyone who's trying to run a business. Where does that piece of taking what somebody's doing on chain start to translate how you then like match these communities up?
Yeah. So what prompted this is in Web2, you have companies collecting all kinds of data, like they try to know personal information, the person's like gender, age, geography, and they use those pieces of data to try to understand the person's interest. So it's kind of an indirect way. Versus in Web3, you literally have the person's like transaction history, which is like purchase history, and so instead of doing like some kind of indirect way, it's you have there what you need, and you don't need to try to get more personal data that's not relevant to like the purchase decision itself.
Yeah, interesting. So one of the things that I think is important for this discussion before we dive more into the actual product and what you've built here is that there is that part of, if you are tracking and if you are looking at someone's transaction history, some of the things they're interacting with, how anonymous is this stuff? And I think, and I'm not saying this is something like that you guys are doing. I think like people have a misconception of blockchain and like what that really means. I think for some reason people think it's more anonymous than it really is, because it literally everything is transparent. um, so how do you kind of phrase that, and how do you think about that as you're building GrowthMate as a whole?
Yeah. So, um, as some of the listeners might notice, like when you try to open, for example, a bank account, then you go there, you provide your personal information, your ID, all that. Versus when you try to open to have like a wallet, basically all that you are doing is you are generating a random number locally on your machine, and then you're just using that random number to authenticate yourself, to say like, hey, I have control over this wallet. I can make this transaction, right?
Hmm.
So now every time you try to connect and use like some Web3 DApp, you connect your wallet, and at that moment the DApp itself knows your address,
Right.
and so yeah, they can tell, like they can look up your transaction history from the blockchain.
Hmm.
But then on the other hand, they don't have access to the personal information because you don't provide that in the first place, right?
Right.
Like a
Right.
wallet, just random number.
And is it for you guys in your business, and we're going to show a demo in a minute, but I want to just kind of get into your business a little bit. Is the business here, while you're providing these insights, is it to be able to simply go back and present marketing opportunities, or are you actually trying to be able to reach out and engage that user base like directly through something?
Yeah. So again, for ads itself, you have multiple applications. So for one, you created a new product, you want to get some awareness to your project, right? And so in that case, that's one application for ads. But yeah, I would say like a more prominent application would be retargeting, right? So yeah, that's the case where users are using like they already used your product or used a similar product, and so you would want to reach out to those users because you already know that they are interested in what you are doing, and you
For
have
sure.
a higher chance to convert them, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it makes a ton of sense.
So
Um, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
sorry, I just wanted to add that, so that's on the ad product side. On the other side, which is our wallet feeds, um, we collect ourselves, like all possible actions that you can do on Web3. For that, we built our own like event processing pipeline that collects things from Twitter, like announcements. And by the way, here's a small shout out. Please, if you are building on Near and you make an announcement about your project, please like tag either Near Week, they have a Near Week bot, or newer curated.fun.
Mm,
Um, and
great
because
advice.
those are two of the sources that we look at, for example, and we also look at APIs like DeFi Llama. We scrape some websites. So yeah, and the goal from that is literally just to find the most interesting things to each user, because in Web3 in general, attention span is there's so many projects fighting over it, and there is so much going on that as a user, even me myself, like I always miss things that I would be interested
Absolutely.
in. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, great point there. I mean, I think that is one of those things too that I really feel like is so underrated, that like just again like looping into the ecosystem, making sure that people are even aware of what's happening, because we are so disconnected here. Everyone being online, there's so much information all the time. So curating some of that obviously is a piece of that. I have a ton of questions. I definitely want to go into some other areas, but I'd love to maybe we take a few minutes and actually walk through the GrowthMate product and give people a sense of what that is, and then that will maybe help frame some more of my questions here.
Okay. Should I share my screen here?
That'd be great.
Let's see. Um, mm, I guess now you should be able to see one
Yep,
of
let me
them,
pull it up.
right?
Yep, perfect.
Okay. So here I started with the wallet feed product. And so in this case, like our latest iteration is just a chat assistant that under the hood, it has access to multiple sources of information. And so, yeah, you can see here I'm logged in with my wallet, script.near. And so it knows, for example, my net worth. It knows my portfolio, my holdings. This is also like another, like one of the parameters that play a role in the recommendation. For example, hey, you hold these assets. By the way, you can do these cool things with those assets that you hold already. And it has access to my transaction history. And we do this, by the way, also multi-chain. So we have Near, Ethereum, Polygon, Base, many EVM. And so based on that, based on my holdings, I was like, hey, suggest me some cool things to do. And this is here, I would like to highlight something in contrast to most ecosystem pages. So most chains, they have an ecosystem page where you can look up at all the projects that are deployed there. And in our case, like usually if I just give you a logo, by the way, we are going to, I just noticed Ria Finance, right? There is the new rebrand. We should update it.
Okay.
So most of them, they just show you like Ria Finance or Finance. They show you a logo and they tell you it's a DEX. But they don't tell you the opportunities inside the project. So it's like, okay, it's cool, it's a DEX. What can I do there in the end? And so we go one level deeper and we like surface all the opportunities from within the projects. So it's the highlight here is more about what can you do and not just about telling you, hey, this project exists. And so, yeah, in this case, it detected that I transact a lot with stablecoins. And I also have some transactions with Shih Tzu. And so it recommended to me these farming opportunities on Ref with stablecoins, Shih Tzu. Yeah, stablecoins also.
Is the goal here for something like this is to be a standalone product, or like with the recommendation for this to actually move inside again, like you said, like a wallet, or maybe Ria Finance actually has this on their site, things like that?
Yeah, it's the second. So having standalone thing is great because it allows us to iterate and test with users in the beginning. But eventually we want it on ecosystem pages, on wallets. Wallets already have like discovery tab usually, or some explore tab. And so I think this would be like a really great fit. Yeah.
Nice.
And then you can prompt it more. You can tell it, hey, show me stuff from other ecosystems. And we also noticed that many times the users in the beginning, they would stop the conversation early, mainly because they wouldn't know what to do with the tool. So this was like a really helpful addition and maybe like a good tip for anyone who's building agents in general. Follow-up prompts, they're great.
Right.
Yeah.
It makes a ton of sense. So for you guys and for this, like those recommendations, where are those coming from? Are you sourcing those, or is that something where like is it pay to play? Like where does that all fit into?
Yeah, no. As I said, so first we source them ourselves. So this is where our event pipeline comes in, where we collect things from Twitter, Telegram, RSS feeds, websites, APIs. It's not pay to play because again, for this product, if it's going to be integrated into wallets, ecosystem pages, and like other third parties, then you're providing the value to those. And so the value there would be you should give really the best recommendations to their users.
Where does that put you guys as the facilitator of that? I mean, is that as part of your business model then to say like we're providing this best possible tool, and so the service like Rhea would pay you guys? Or, like, where does that all fit in for that?
Yeah, eventually the integrator should pay. So for now, because this is like a new product, we would like to demonstrate value first. But eventually it's on the integrators because they should be also the ones who benefit from the value.
Sure.
And of course, eventually they can make agreements. So you see here, another thing is we always link the user, and we try to make it like specific to the page itself. So if I'm farming, I will land directly like in the pools page. Let's see if this works. Okay, I guess because this is the Rhea stuff that I should integrate. But eventually, I always try to send them to the exact place. And so
Right.
one possible thing is to add some UTM parameters there, and you can have some agreements between like the integrator and the target itself. Yeah.
For you guys, I mean, obviously agents are the hot topic right now. For you guys integrating this piece of it, is it something that feels like this is the better approach to the interaction with the end user, or is this kind of like one piece of the toolkit? I mean, like, is there a point where like it almost feels like you're presenting like ads like the way Google does, and like results of just, let me just show you stuff based off of that we know who you are, versus you having a conversation?
Yeah, so when we started building this, first we started as just the advertising product. And so it was mainly about ads. But then again, we realized, for one, if you're going to a publisher or someone to integrate your ads platform, then the main value proposition there would be, hey, you will be paid to display ads, right, on your site. And there we quickly figured out that for certain verticals in Web3, they are not interested in like the revenue that they would generate from ads. For one, because the number of users, it wouldn't be that much. They are mainly making money, for example, on swap fees, transaction fees, right? And so they would be interested in a different value proposition. And so they are mainly interested in growing their user base, in retaining their users. And so when we looked at what we have built already, we figured like, hey, actually, again, we are like in the core just a recommendation system. The pool of candidate changes. So you switch for one product, the pool of candidate is advertising campaigns that are paid for. For the other product, the pool of candidates is these opportunities that we collect. Then you can basically have like two products, but they are built on the same system, more or less. So it wasn't like a big effort to spin up a second product.
Yeah. Interesting. So is this built on something within the ecosystem, or is this fully from like your guys' own? The agent part of it, just the agent part of it.
Oh, the agent. Yeah, so we started with Bitter. By the way, yeah, like thanks a lot to their team. They have been great with support and answering our questions.
Good with that.
I liked a lot their like embedded agent kit. But then we are also going very soon. We will have another version for Near AI. And what attracted us mostly there is that the data and the recommendations can be accessed from other agents. Yeah, so we don't need to do the integrations ourselves.
Right. Interesting.
It's mainly like the way I think about it is mainly up to our agent to convince other agents that he's the competent one to take over this task.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So while we're on the topic of agents, and I want to kind of stay with this a little bit here, as you're designing this to provide these recommendations, like how are you guys able to test what's coming out? Like how do you, and I want to phrase this as like, obviously you can like ask questions, right? Like you can do normal tests as like a user, but you want it to actually funnel people into different paths based off of like what their background is, what they're interested in. What is that validation that you guys are doing for that piece?
Yeah. So for one, it's just very simple web analytics. So all you want is like we created this new thing. It's hosted on a website somewhere. No one knows about it, right? So the easiest thing is you should first drive traffic into it. For that, we use ads. Surprise, surprise, right? And you just bring traffic into it, and then
Yeah.
with web analytics, you can figure out. So that's one of the ways that we figured out that, hey, the conversation was stopping very quickly, for example, as I mentioned. And then we're like, oh, let's add these follow-up prompts, and then you would see the conversation going longer. Yeah. And what would be another thing? I don't know. I think that's it.
So, and then again, and this has got to be a challenge, and I'm using the Web 2 as an example because I think it's the most clear thing that people definitely understand. So I'm not trying to just do an apples to apples comparison here, but in Web 2, in order to get some of these type of results, like they are collecting massive amounts of data. You guys are leveraging as much public data as possible in order to do this. Is there a point where you need to have some of your own data that's being collected in order to improve the product and to get to that point? And what does that look like for you guys in order is that what you're doing? What does that look like?
Yeah. Maybe a small story time here from like when we started this. So we started again with the promise like, hey, we don't need to collect any side data, right? We have literally purchase history. That's all you need. And when we tried launching the advertising product, first advertiser, they were like, hey, we have a community of we have a product from like a non-English speaking country, and they were like, we only want to run ads to people who would understand that language.
Sure.
Which like makes sense.
Yeah.
How do you get that from blockchain data, right? It's not there. Like you don't see the person's main language
Right.
from blockchain history. And so that's where we know, hey, we had to expand the scope a little bit. And so you have like one side, you have blockchain data, but then on the other side, you also get like server side data. So any data, again, this is maybe like some, like in blockchain, for example, when you make a transaction to a smart contract, then the transaction will appear. In Web 2, there is also similar things. There are some data that must be revealed. Like if your machine is communicating with another machine, then IP address will be revealed.
Right.
Of course, you can like try to hide that through like a VPN or Tor or some other means, but in the end, like you will get the IP address of the machine communicating with you. And so with the IP address, there are also some headers that are sent with every request. So that's like what we call server-side data. And so we try to also like hold ourselves. So far, it's been enough. Yeah, and we don't want to get into like client side, which is getting data from the user's machine.
Right. No, I think that's an interesting approach. I mean, either just from a philosophical standpoint, I like the way you phrase it. Like there are different probably dividing lines of like when is it too much, right? Like what is that line of like what's the bare minimum that we need to iterate our product X amount better? And so I like the approach of that there. And for people who are coming onto the platform as they start to then use this product and as you guys are starting to serve up more recommendations, is that a piece though for you guys? Are you collecting that information of like I was doing farming and recommended this and I clicked through and now I am like that was a good choice for me, so you guys can then better serve that? How does that all work together?
Yeah. So we get like first when we serve the recommendation, anything that we serve, it's we log it in our own database. So that's like what we did, and then the feedback on what we did comes in from first, did the user see that? So that's like a view, like when you see on Twitter or YouTube, that's like views. It's the equivalent of that, impressions. And then whether the user clicked on it or not. So And then, of course, right now this part, like the last part, is not automated, but seeing if those clicks resulted in on-chain actions.
Right.
I know some projects they are working on this. So this field it's called attribution, and so there are many Web3 projects that are specializing in this. For now, we do it in the form of like our own internal case studies.
I mean, the obvious answer was right there of like you just said of all you need is the on-chain data in that regards, because if they then do a transaction, you now know, okay, you were here, you did this kind of transaction, so you can start putting, A and B together here, and then okay, that's what led to it, without having to again. And I think, and I'm bringing this all up because I'm a big believer in user own data and privacy and things like that. And this is a really interesting approach that you guys are being obviously conscious about that. But this is where like the power of blockchain actually fits in this example of you don't have to have all of these loaded referral links. You don't have to have all of this other tracking information, because you're simply saying, look, the end goal is to make a transaction. And so as long as I'm here and I know that like this was recommended to you and you then transacted, like that's a win. That is success. Now to now a data point that's still publicly available for you guys to process. Am I on the right track
Yeah,
of how you guys are thinking about that?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then even sometimes it's helpful, uh, like in minority of cases where you make a recommendation of something that we actually believe it's not the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where you can test your algorithm, because you can tell like, hey, what if the user actually takes that?
Mm.
Then our algorithm was not right about it, right?
Right.
So that's also like some good source of valuable data.
Absolutely. Absolutely. For the for you guys, and I guess I'd like to talk a little bit about actually, because you guys are live, you are an actual product. You went from, again, you even said like you kind of slightly pivoted a little bit. What's that process been like to have this actually ship it and then decide we need to adjust the plan a little bit, just from a business standpoint?
Well, I mean, you have conversations with projects. Some projects they take your first product, some projects don't, and then you try to find the commonalities between the projects that did and the projects that didn't,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how you can like segment, and from there you can know, okay, this is like at some point you already know before talking to the team, like, hey, this project is in this vertical, probably we should pitch them this product with this value proposition because this and this. And
Right.
then for the other teams, it was uh, mainly like trying to get feedback from the teams that didn't want the first product.
Mm-hmm.
And that was also like a little bit tricky, because many projects, they're just like, no, thank you. But then, like, okay, you know that they're not interested, but you don't know what would be a good alternative for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had to just do more conversations, to be honest.
What are you finding in, and I guess probably this fits into maybe a further discussion of your roadmap, but like, what are some things that you're finding as you have these conversations? Like, I have to imagine, especially those companies that are trying to be crypto native first, they are trying to uphold some of that ethos, that the idea of having to do recommendations and advertising type of algorithms must be, I don't say a tough conversation, but just something that maybe like their instant reaction is like no, and then you have to kind of go a step further of like, well, let me actually educate you on how we are still preserving some of this stuff. Is that part of the job of what you guys are trying to do here?
That is indeed part of the job.
Yeah.
But again, for example, like one of the most important verticals to us, wallets, they already have like a wallet. It's like the gateway to Web3.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, many wallets are working towards a future where they want to be the only place. So the user doesn't have to keep switching and going to different UIs, different front ends to interact with the different projects. They just need it's more than just a key management solution. It's just one super app. If you want
Right.
to borrow, to swap, to stake, you do everything from within that app. And so they are already interested very much in retaining those users and knowing what would be interested to them, and the things that their users are really want to do. Now the problem there is many wallets, they want to build that internally. Okay, well, we have developers, we can do it ourselves. And the big point, at least in my opinion, against that is the more data you have, the better algorithms that you can train, and better algorithms mean better recommendations. And then again, it's like a feedback loop. With more recommendations, you get more data, and that continues. And so if you have tens of wallets and everyone is just working on its own thing internally, for one, they would be repeating the same process, but then also the acceleration or the improvement of their recommendations would not happen as fast as if they just give this to a third party, and then they can just aggregate all the data. And so that's
Yeah. Is that like the main value prop for you guys right now? Is that like you're going to be able to improve your recommendations and your algorithms faster by being an aggregator versus someone doing it in-house?
Of course. I mean, like a wallet, they have so many things to do. I mean, for one, they have to make sure that they are managing their users' keys security. You have all these new chain abstraction, account abstraction, smart account, these whole signing standards that
Yeah.
they have to keep up to date with. They have to integrate with other projects under the hood. They have so many things to do. If we are not doing recommendations, at least it's like our one thing. And if we are not doing it better than them, then what are we doing here?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think just from like a builders and developer standpoint, there's a great lesson in there of like understanding like what you're good at and understanding like what your strengths are as a product as well. And like you said, I mean, there are so many other things that go into running a wallet, for example, that for them to then add on something like this in-house is detrimental probably in multiple ways. It's taking away time, it's taking away, it's maybe, financially burdensome as well for them. It's not their core case. They're not going to have as much information as you have. And probably when all said and done, if they had just integrated a product like yours, not only they probably saving time, but they're getting a much better end user experience for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So kind of I want to go back a little bit here and talk about the advertising piece. Is that something that you guys are still pursuing, or is that kind of going to the wayside a little bit?
No, it's
Yeah.
we are pushing two products in parallel. Yeah.
What does that really look like for Web3? And I guess maybe like just for even for my own education, a little bit of like how do you start to separate what does a Web3 advertising look like versus what everyone knows of like Web2?
That's a great question. Um, for one, I don't think that we should try to separate that much, um, because again, advertising in Web2, it's very mature industry. Um, they have in the workflow, from the time that you visit a website to the time that you get an ad, there is so many third parties involved. So many you have
Right.
your demand side platform, your supply side, you have like the exchanges. There is like many pieces in there, and I don't think we should just reinvent the wheel just because we are Web3.
Mm-hmm.
I think the main benefit here in Web3 is it's all about using on-chain data. There is like a really good place where we can fit into the existing Web2 infrastructure. I think like, for example, pre-bid enrichment solutions, they would be like really great. So that in that case, maybe like a small background. Um, so in many systems where you go to website, the website like gets some parts of your data. Maybe if there's like some cookie associated with you, they put that with the context, and then many advertisers they can bid. It's like an auction, and then the
Mm-hmm.
winner of that is going to get to display their ad. And those bids, they are done like they're informed bids, right? They're
Right.
bidding based on the data that they know about that user or about the context where the user is. And I think if like Web3, if we can demonstrate value in the data that we provide, and if the data that we provide does contain more signal than the other like personal data, let's say, then hopefully eventually more advertisers would rely on these signals instead of the other more privacy, like less private signals that they are getting.
Sure.
And so I don't think of it as like replacing Web2. I think of it as like integrating in one specific place and doing that so well that you demonstrate value that they get to adopt your part.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's another data point that fits into the larger message here, and hopefully you can start to replace, like you said, some of those privacy concerning data points. For you guys, I mean, just from the business aspect, I don't know the advertising business super well. I know enough just from like buying, different ads like on Google Ads or whatever. But um, for like that supply and demand piece of it, is that something that you guys are trying to also solve for, of like how to price all of that? Because in from my understanding, and please correct me if I'm way off, but from my understanding is that the more someone will pay for an ad is the more targeted it can be, right? So if I know that like I am reaching a very specific targeted audience, that ad is worth more, so I'm willing to maybe pay more as the advertiser, and I can charge more as the supplier as well. So for you guys, where you are limited in data, and but you do have some interesting data with on-chain stuff, does that, like, how's pricing start to kind of fit into that? And like, what are you guys thinking around part of that?
So first, when you go to advertisers and you tell them like, hey, this is an ad solution, we found that many of them, they have like some kind of anchor on Web2 prices.
Mm-hmm.
And so they think like, oh, this is what I would pay if I'm targeting on X or Reddit. And so they would think of similar prices.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's like purely psychological. On the other hand, we don't have. It's like we right now our system works with an auction mechanism. So we use perturbed second price auction. And so again, we don't need really to push on prices as
Mm-hmm.
much as just leave it up to the free market. But eventually, as you said, it's based on the data and based on how much each like advertiser stands to make by bringing a user to their platform.
Yeah.
They should be willing to bet more when it's clearer to them that that user is like more qualified, let's say.
Right. And that feels like where the work you guys are doing with the agent makes a lot of sense, and I could see how that could inform what you're then doing on the advertising side of understanding like user acquisition. How do I get somebody who is in this bucket based off of on-chain data to this product, and I can start to see where those pieces all kind of make sense.
Yeah, I mean, maybe a small tangent here. So for wallet feed, you see an agent, which is like an LLM, right?
Yep.
LLMs would not be like a great fit for an ad product, just because, for one, you're optimizing for latency, so you want to respond to the user like really fast, like tens of milliseconds. They matter because otherwise, like the user would scroll past the ad, and
Mm-hmm.
now you lost the opportunity. And so the way our project started is we started with by training our own predictive algorithms. So we get like all transactions that happened on a chain for a certain month,
Yep.
and then based on that we can train our own in-house machine learning thing that it can predict the user's next action. And
Okay.
we did that with like about 80% accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
So given like users last n transactions, you can tell, for example, which category they are going to interact with next. So that would be like a DeFi, DEX, AMM, borrowing, and how much USD volume would be involved in that transaction.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, but we found like the thing is, when you build this sort of stuff, and the way we did it, it's very like ossified in a way,
Mm-hmm.
where like if you're working with some structure of data, and then that structure of data, or you get like another data point, then you need to change and retrain the models, versus when you have something like just pure recommendations where the user really wants to go and explore stuff. Latency
Great
is not
point.
as much of an issue, and so
Mm-hmm.
an agent gives us like a flexibility where I mean, like again, right now we integrate multiple chains. We don't even need to have like a unified schema of the data from those chains. You just like give it to the LLM, and it knows how to work with the data. So it gives us like more freedom to iterate quicker.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. Of just how being able to feed some of that raw data in there probably allows for insights that you wouldn't normally catch on anyways, right? Like it's just gonna do a better job with some of that pattern matching and things like that. Um, this has been really interesting. I do want to end with, and this actually question came from the audience, so I'll actually bring it up. Just kind of talk about like your roadmap. You guys are doing some interesting things here around both advertising and stuff with the agent. What does that roadmap kind of look like? You've talked about cross chain a little bit already. What's the roadmap for you guys in the next 6 to 12 months?
Talk to more projects,
Yeah,
get more adoption for both products, and refine recommendations. Like make the product better, I guess.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point. And like we talk to a lot of builders here and we want to highlight kind of some of that process. Sometimes the roadmap is simply just iterating, right? It's not always like, right? It's not just feature, 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 feature all the time. Sometimes it's simply like, hey, we know what we're trying to do. We're going to continue to iterate. And I love that you guys are really seeking feedback from outside and getting a sense of like what users are looking for, and what potential customers might want from there. Uh, where do you see this as a business model long term? Something where you start to allow people to kind of get in on the action to some degree of like how Brave does the thing of like you could like get paid for seeing some ads. You get a token for that. Is that something that's on your guys' mind? How do you see the business model shaping up?
Yeah, like during our conversations, some publishers mention things on like from close to that. For now, it makes it much easier if we just give it all to the publisher or like to the platform,
Yep.
and then it's up to them how they want to redistribute it between their users or between themselves and the users. It makes it just easier for us, and it gives them more flexibility. But again, if that's something that more publishers would ask for, then it shouldn't be hard to implement, especially that you have this whole like closed feedback loop where you can look up the actions on chain.
Right.
In that case, you don't even need to make the user like go. So, like you can just, you wake up one day and your wallet has a little bit more money in it because
Right.
you've been looking at some stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Makes a ton of sense there. This was great. This is something really interesting. I'm really excited to see how you guys continue to grow. I know there's a few products I've seen around crypto trying to do something similar, but it sounds like you guys have a really unique approach to this, and I think the agent's really clever to get started from there. Anything you want to end on? Obviously, I put the website here at the bottom. People should go check you guys out. Is that the best way to kind of get in touch with you as well?
Yeah. From our landing page, we have our email, Telegram, everything.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's been great.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming on, and I'd love to have you back on as you guys continue to grow and kind of kind of look back at like what's happening with all of this and stuff like that. So thanks so much.
Awesome.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thanks, Mohammed. Great stuff. Really great conversation, guys. I hope people learned something from that and start to see, you know, again, I love the part where he talks about what goes into building the app as well, and that feedback loop is so that's a big piece of all this as well. I think is people need to. It's not just about getting a product that you think people want to use, but how you can iterate based off that feedback. So, really great stuff. As promised, everyone has been super excited about these challenges. So I'm bringing Vlad back on here, talk more about this past one, future ones. Everybody wants more. So we brought you more. Vlad, how's it going?
Going well, thanks for having me. That was an amazing talk, by the way. Very insightful. But back to the challenges.
Yes.
First, I want to talk about, again, just a reminder, we are doing quests every week, and the last week was not exception, and this week is neither. But also this is educational experience. So I will take a bit of we'll start from recap where it all happened last week. So let me bring up the screen. Is it shared, Joe?
Yes. Yep.
Amazing. So this is where it all started. So a new quest for near developers by near developers. That is gonna be the ongoing theme, and as you can see, this is where it all started. This is the output of near CLI res. A very beautiful way to view that this is the account name that was captured to this block height, and you can even find the contract link associated with this code. And obviously, you can also see the methods available in the contract. There were some tips along the way, how to solve it, where to look. And this is where the code was published. It was implemented fully in Python SDK. And it was a lot of fun to see how people tried to solve it without a way to solve it in the first day. There was a clear indication that the quest will start and being activated at specific time in the future. I think I didn't immediately communicate the fact that there is gonna be a second secret portion revealed later on. So a lot of people tried to crack it before that. I'm very proud of Python SDK to hold strong. No bugs revealed, and nobody could interfere with my plans to run this quest.
That's good.
So we started on Friday last week, Friday evening. The activation started to tick. The activation was in the realm of 24 hour. There was two iterations of it. So the first iteration was 24 hours plus some random amount, and it was recorded on chain. The activation time, unfortunately, the activation time was not printed in the logs. There was some funny communication here in the comments. And the first challenge was to find when the activation time will happen. And for that, you could use near CLI or any other tool actually to view the state of the contract. Let me show you quickly how. So on the contract in near CLI, there is a view storage, and you can view request. No, not this one. Not the owner account, but the request itself. All keys as text, mainnet, yes. And the activation time was in nanoseconds UTC time. So this is how you could learn where it all will start. But then the second part, you should have called withdraw method somehow. And withdraw method had several guards in it. So you had to deposit some tokens with a call. So you learned how to deposit near attaching it to the call itself. Then the activation time should come. So whoever has the more precise estimation where it is kind of wins. Then, but also you have to call the contract from the from itself. So you have to, the only way to, or not from itself, but from the owner account ID. So you can only be allowed to call the withdraw method if you sign the transaction or make a cross contract call from owner account ID. And what is that? That is this near DevQuest owner account. And this is where most of the people spend their time the first 24 hours trying to figure out what is the flow in this logic and how to abuse it. There was none. This is always a good exercise to maybe find some creative ways to avoid it. So, but there was no. And the second piece of the quest was revealed at the activation time on blockchain. So on the blockchain, near blocks, if we would go to the quest account or to the owner account, doesn't really matter because they were interacting with each other. This owner. So this was the contract, the account that was holding the contract. And if we would, as you can see, there were quite some attempts to do something with it. In the form of these updates, so there were some contract calls happening. Please. Let's see if we have other Explorer that is working at the moment. Here we go, archival node for the win. So there were some messages going on, and the message had, so yeah, and just a quick recap, the quest actually was solved several times, but on the first day, on Saturday, two attempts and two successful attempts were done by white hackers, and they decided to return the bank back to me, and we restarted the quest. And on Sunday, I changed the rules a little bit. So we'll talk about the first rules. So the first iteration of the quest. So I was posting this hint of inviting people to gain the control to the account, and was talking about some beneficiary account ID being for all, and I was providing signature and a recent block hash. This may be too cryptic, or maybe not, but each transaction on the blockchain, when you submit it, has a specific structure. So if we go to near core, I want to, like, there is no secrecy in it, so you should not be scared of looking into the code. If we look into the transaction structure, we can see that in order to build the construction, so basically the message that you are submitting to the blockchain, you need several data pieces. So you need to provide signer account ID, that is your account ID. You need to provide your public key, public, not private. You need to record the public key here. I will get back to why we need it here. You need nonce. Nonce is the also mechanism to prevent that is preventing us from reusing the same transaction in the future. And you need to provide also receiver account ID, like what is the target account that we are targeting, and we need to provide recent block hash that is recorded on chain. So we ensure that this is a transaction not from a different chain, but signed for the same signer and receiver using the same public key. Imagine we have the same account ID on testnet and mainnet, for example. So to prevent reuse of the transaction, just extracting it from other chain and putting it into mainnet, we need block hash. And we need a list of actions such as transfer function, call, add key, remove key, delete account, create account, and deploy code. So if we would look into action, where's action? Action, there is delete account action that requires you to specify beneficiary account ID. What is this? This is the account that will receive the remaining near tokens after the account is removed. So when you want to delete the account, you need to specify the action delete account and specify beneficiary account ID. And that is all, like if you would go with near CLI IRS, you would be guided through this process and will ask you to, for example, if I want to account, delete account, owner, near dev quest 02 owner account, I want to delete it. And I want to send the remaining tokens to Frol. And I want to check that the Frol exists. Yes, sure. It's just a safeguard. Usability on mainnet. No, it's on mainnet. Yeah. And at this point, this is the prepared transaction for me to sign. So this is unsigned transaction. And in order to sign it, you basically take this transaction and you serialize it to Borsch. Treat it like, if you're not familiar with Borsch, treat it as like serialize it to JSON text, and then hash it, and then sign that hash with your private key. With a private key that is corresponding to this public key, and the nonce should be at least one, like this is just a simple integer that is always has to be greater than the previous one that is recorded on chain. So at least +1 is enough. And so the quest, going back to the quest, so what I was given to the people was the hint that they can remove my account by constructing a new transaction with the specifying the frol.near as the beneficiary account ID to where the near tokens will be sent. Remaining near tokens of this account owner will be sent over. The recent block hash is also required as part of the structure of transaction, as we just covered. The public key, the public key, there was just one public key recorded on chain for this transaction. You can also view it on near with this tool, account, list keys, owner. Here it is. And you had nonce that's also recorded on chain always. And you know that this access key is full access key. So this means that this access key can be used to remove the account itself. And you have the signature. So the signature is the last bit. So since you do not have the private key, obviously you cannot sign the transaction. But since I provided you the signature, you can combine the transaction that is unsigned with the signature, and then it will give you the signed transaction after that. So if you would then see the history, where is this? Why it's not visible here? Oh, it's frol, it's not owner. Hold on. Owner. Here it is. So delete account. So after I communicated this update here in the text, I provide the signature. Someone was able to construct this transaction with this exact hash and with the from the owner to the owner, and with the beneficiary account ID for all, and the signature that I provided. So altogether, that was enough to basically then just what they needed. They created this transaction, just plain bytes, and submitted to the RPC. And RPC was treating it as if I was signing this transaction. So after they removed the account, delete account, they were able to create a new one. So it was Pierre who solved it first, and they were able to control this account because they own it after that point, and they were able to withdraw from the main quest account. So this was a solution.
Really interesting. There's a couple of really neat things here. Obviously, some of the account model stuff on Near comes into play here. The cleverness of to understand how the key structure works, right? It's a big piece of this understanding, which I think is a great thing for all developers to understand. If you're building on blockchain, understand how the keys actually work with this. And so, like you said, when as soon as that account is deleted, it is available for someone else to then claim. And so, and the contract doesn't know that it's a new key, a new private key. So it just knows that this is the right, username. So that
Exactly.
I think that's really an interesting lesson there for people too.
Yeah, and then the second iteration of it was a bit different. So during this exercise, actually, once someone removed it, there was a brief moment in time where anyone could register a new account. So just wanted to highlight that flaw that we had here, which is also which is something that Slime Dragon tried to exploit in the second iteration of the quest. So he was bombarding the blockchain with attempts to create a new account. So once someone removed the account, he was trying to gain the control. But the rules has changed over the weekend, and I, instead of asking and providing people with the details on how to construct the transaction that would delete the account. I provided it with instructions of how to create how to add your not your own, but how to add a new access key that you already know the private key for. So basically the end of the quest was the same, but the beginning was, instead of creating the transaction that would remove the account, we needed to create a transaction that would add a new access key to the account. The access key that so add access key is another type of transaction action that you can use. Add key. Hold on. This way I think it's a bit better. So it was add key from the owner to the owner. And this is something that you had to create. And once you create that transaction and submit it to the blockchain, again, this was the transaction that not me was submitting to the blockchain. It was Eugene Kuzakov who solved the quest on the next day. And after you added the new access key, again, there is a brief moment in time where anyone can then use this private key to control that account, which is why almost immediately Eugene was removing the where was it? Removing the access keys. So he removed two access keys, the original that I possessed and the one that he just added. And the previous transaction he had was to add his own access key that only he knows and has control for. So yeah, that was an exercise on understanding how the transactions are constructed, how they are decoupled from wallet UIs or the blockchain, CLI, or even my machine. So if I would, so we can always create different protocols and processes how to use it. And one of the example of the use is MPC. So if you've been following the cross-chain chain abstraction area of development in general, that it does exactly the same. On chain, you create a transaction that is not signed, and then the MPC network providing you with a signature. And once the signature and the transaction are in place, anyone can just submit that transaction to the RPC. Anyone. It's no longer tied to one single machine to do that. So that is how cross chain abstraction actually kind of works under the hood.
Nice, awesome. This was a great quest. A lot of engagement, a lot of feedback. So that was really great. Any sneak preview for the next one? Can we give a hint of what the next one's going to be?
Absolutely. Yeah, so I am about to commit and push to my GitHub repo. So stay tuned for the next probably 23 minutes. I'm building it. I don't want some people to have more advantage than the others before the announcement goes live. That's why I'm a bit more protective, but it is becoming more harder to test out all my code.
I'm sure. Yeah, people are watching.
Iterations. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, these are great. These are fun and really great lessons for everybody to get involved with. So again, even if you don't know how to solve it, definitely check out how they get solved, because a lot to learn in that. So very cool.
Yeah, and I just posted in the chat. Maybe you Joe can put it on the screen. This is the account that will be used where the hold on, that's the wrong one.
Oh, okay.
It should have Frolnir in it. So this is the account where you should start. I will obviously post updates in the social media channels as well, but you can pay attention to that.
Very cool. Exciting. So I think I'm gonna give this one a try. I should have time this weekend. I should be able to give this one a try myself too. So I'm excited.
Amazing. Cool.
Good stuff. Well, thank you, Vlad. These are awesome. We're looking forward to many more. And we will, and for everyone watching, this will be a regular segment now. Vlad will come on, explain these. So always stay tuned for these. Great stuff. Thanks, Vlad. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, see you next week.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks. Thanks, everybody. Check out this quest coming up. Definitely want to get on top of that. It's going to be fun. It's going to go fast. A lot of developers are waiting now for that. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Subscribe to our newsletter down below if you haven't already. All our latest news, including these type of challenges and everything else, will be always included in that. If you want to reach out to us or if you have questions about development, all those links are here at the bottom. Make sure you check those out too. Feel free to jump into any of the chats, especially the dev support one. People will definitely be talking about the challenge if you're doing that as well throughout the weekend as well. But until next week, we will have more great guests coming the rest of this month. Really good stuff all the way through. And then there's some more hackathons coming up as well, which we are going to be announcing very soon. So stay on the alert for that as well. But until then, have a great rest of the week. And we will see you same time next week. Bye, everybody.